Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following.
The Lethbridge District exhibition is receiving an emergency operating grant from the city. We have the details. Next year, Canadians will not only be paying more in carbon taxes, but also in payroll taxes. Franco Terzano from the CTF will have more. And we hear from a hostage who was recently released by Hamas, who explains his ordeal and what he did to survive while being held in captivity.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Lethbridge City Council approved initial steps to create a path forward for the financially troubled Lethbridge and District exhibition and its agri-food hub and trade centre. Council approved an emergency operating grant to the LDE of $250,000 and a contingency fund of $950,000. Included in the resolution is an interim governance body of administrative staff from the city and Lethbridge County, along with a memorandum of understanding to be developed between the city and the LDE.
There's a process here, and this will come with the MOU that is still going to be coming back to council. It needs to be back, I think, by the 19th of January. And that governance model will, it's the clean slate. I guess I'll say this, the main thing is that we want to start with a clean slate. Be very transparent, accountable. And so for that reason, we will be starting with a clean slate as long as this MOU comes back. And this is a decision not city council or not city. This is exhibition and city as well together that are going to work on this MOU and bring this back. And it's been a decision that has been agreed upon by both parties.
Lethbridge City Council and local historian Belinda Croson says the city and the Lethbridge and District exhibition have a long-standing relationship, and this isn't the first time the X has been bailed out.
We saved the exhibition board in 1920 handed the keys over to the city, and the city created a new board there. We bailed them out numerous times during the Great Depression. The city has actually run this site previously. City staff have maintained the property. During the Second World War up until 1947, the city entirely ran it, and the city created a new board in 1947. We bailed them out in 1992 again when they were in trouble again, and here we are 30 years later. We've always fixed the problem together. The exhibition and the city have always worked together.
The city owns the land that the $77 million agri-food hub and trade centre is located on. It also contributed $25 million towards the construction of the facility, which opened in August of this year. A Lethbridge faith-based organization reached a huge milestone that'll see 46 more treatment beds for those who are battling addictions. BCN's Naveen Day has more now on how Streets Alive has had such a major impact in our community.
For more than 20 years, Streets Alive mission exists to provide for the physical, emotional, social, and spiritual needs of the poor to empower them to change their lives. The Exodus Men's Life Recovery Program and Genesis Women's Life Recovery Program are faith-centered, abstinence-based programs which walk with men and women through the process to change their lives. Earlier this month, the two programs became licensed from Alberta Mental Health and Addictions as residential addiction treatment services. COO for Streets Alive Mission, Cameron Kissick, shared with the media how the province got involved.
Back in September, we had a visit with somebody from Alberta Mental Health, and we talked with them about it, and they helped us through the process. They were incredibly accommodating, helped us through the process of getting the license and what we needed to get in order, and then issuing the license.
Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Udorf says, although the addition of 46 more beds in the community is a milestone, addictions is an always evolving challenge.
We added the 50 at Fresh Start, another 46 here. That's a really good start, but there's obviously more work to do, and we would all look forward to the day where we don't need any more beds, to be perfectly honest. But right now we still have that need and demand, and we will continue to work with all partners that can come forward and help us address the need.
Co-founder of Streets Alive Mission, Julie Kissick, explains the process that clients will be going through.
A detox first, and then they come into a treatment bed. They have to apply, and we take them into a treatment bed. So usually the first 30 days would be considered phase 1, and then the next 90 days would be considered phase 2. And then for the women's side, we have the potential to move them into a different phase, phase 3. And with the men's side, they actually have a phase 4 where they go off into independent living.
Kissick adds the need for abstinence-based housing continues to grow. For Bridge City News, I'm Naveen Day.
You know, when we think of New Year's resolutions, we oftentimes think of getting in shape and losing weight. Well, how about losing more taxes? Well, it seems as though the opposite may be true for 2024. And to talk about this in more detail is Franco Terrazzano, Federal Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, joining us from Ottawa. Franco, Canadians need help with the rising cost of living, but it appears as though the feds will be reaching deeper into our pockets with some tax hikes in the new year. Let's start with the payroll taxes.
Well, brace for impact taxpayers, major tax hikes coming from the Trudeau government in Ottawa. On the payroll taxes, the government's going to be eating away from more of your paycheck in 2024. You can expect to pay up to an extra $347 through payroll taxes. Included in that is a new CPP tax, a second CPP tax. So you can expect to pay up to an extra $347 in 2024 because of these payroll taxes. Your total bill, if you're making $73,000 or more, will be about $5,100 in 2024. So more than $5,000 taken away from your paycheck, and your employer will also have to pay about an extra $5,000 or $5,000 in 2024 through the payroll taxes.
Now, there will also be an increase to the carbon tax. How much more are we talking about, especially when it comes to heating our homes with natural gas?
Well, the carbon tax on natural gas alone this year is costing like an average family about $300, and that's bad. But what's even worse is that the carbon tax is making all aspects of life more expensive. It makes it more expensive for you to fuel up your minivan or your sedan on the way to work. It also makes it more expensive when you go to the grocery store because the carbon tax makes it more expensive for farmers to grow the food, for truckers to deliver the food, and for you to buy the food. The carbon tax is again going up on April 1 of 2024, and the carbon tax could cost the average family up to $900 in 2024-25, even after the rebates.
Thanks so much, Franco. That was Franco Terrazzano, Federal Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, joining us from Ottawa. The Alberta government announced that Albertans will continue to save on the provincial fuel tax in the new year, but not the full 13 cents per litre. Instead, it'll be 4 cents per litre for the first 3 months of 2024. That means gas will be going up about 9 cents a litre. Finance Minister Nate Horner says they will reevaluate after that. He says the program sets fuel tax rates quarterly based on the average price of West Texas Intermediate oil. Horner says Albertans will save some or all of the provincial fuel tax when WTI prices average $80 per barrel or higher in each quarterly review period. He says the province will provide another update before the next quarter, which ends on March the 31st. With Ottawa's new electric vehicle availability standard, zero-emission vehicles must make up at least 20% of all new car sales by the year 2026. And that target will rise to 60% by the year 2030 and 100% by the year 2035. Federal Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault was asked if the 2026 target was achievable, considering many of the charging stations are not even in place yet.
Two provinces are already above that 20% threshold, Quebec and BC. And why are they above that threshold? Because they've put in place similar systems as the one we're announcing here today. Those two provinces have deployed charging stations before other provinces. They have their own incentives. I worked on the Quebec system when I was at Équiterre, and it works. So we are deploying infrastructure charging stations. Already 25,000 have been installed. We'll get to about 85,000 by 2029. So it is happening. And as Julie was saying, 80% of people will charge their vehicle at home. So there is still a need for an infrastructure systems for cross country for longer distances. But by and large, most EV owners will charge themselves at home.
Now, Alberta Premier Daniel Smith was not happy with the federal electric vehicle mandate announcement. In a statement, Smith says the sheer hypocrisy of this announcement is astounding. To date, the federal government's EV approach has been a disaster. Ottawa doesn't even know where EV chargers are needed. The federal commissioner found that the federal government will reach only 1% of its target by the year 2030. The federal government will fail to hit its target even where it has complete discretion, and yet it plans to mandate similar targets on consumers throughout all of Canada. The folks at the National Post say federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre changed the political conversation this year and is the clear favorite to become the next Prime Minister. The federal politician has been named the Canadian Press 2023 Newsmaker of the Year based on votes by broadcast news directors and newspaper editors across the country. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and NDP Premier Wab Kinew tied for second place. People arriving in Canada to study or work boosted our country's population by a record 430,000 in the third quarter. As of October 1st, 40.5 million people called Canada home. Population growth over the first 9 months of the year has already surpassed the growth in any other full year, including the record set just last year. On October the 7th, Hamas terrorists murdered Jimmy Pacheco's employer right in front of him and then took him captive. He spent more than 50 days as a prisoner in Hamas tunnels. Today, he thanks God for his freedom, but still recalls the horror of his capture and what he did to stay alive.
When I was taken out of the house, I didn't expect them to spare me because I witnessed my employer being killed mercilessly.
Jimmy lived in a kibbutz where he was a caregiver to an elderly man who was immediately killed by Hamas. In an exclusive interview, Jimmy talked about his harrowing experience.
I heard gunfire from another house and I sent a message to my wife back in the Philippines to take care of our children. Hamas asked me if I am a soldier. They set a rifle on automatic and fired beside my ear until the ammo ran out. After that, I heard a buzzing sound in my ears. When our supplies were scarce, they only gave us one pita bread for the whole day. But I didn't eat it in one sitting. I just got a pinch whenever I felt hungry. As time passed, the water supply became salty. I worried because I had a history of kidney illness. When I needed to defecate, they gave me a piece of toilet paper. I didn't use it. I hid it in my pocket so I could eat it. For me, it was food. I would take the toilet paper and dab it on the moist walls. We were about 40 meters below the ground, so it was cold and there was condensation on the walls. When the paper got wet enough, I ate it. It filled my empty stomach as well as quenched my thirst. They also made me clean 7 toilets. I was okay with that because if I did not do it, the smell would get worse. During the first and second weeks, I stayed inside a small prison with a toilet right beside me. I kept thinking and wondering, why would they capture me? It was driving me crazy. Why would they capture me if I didn't do anything to them? I got my strength from my children. I had the strength to eat toilet paper because I needed to survive for my children. I pleaded to God because I was 12 years old when my father died. I prayed, please don't do this to me. Please let me live. Even if I stay here for 10 years, just let me live.
After roughly a month and a half in captivity, Jimmy was included in the first batch of hostages released by Hamas.
They told us we would be leaving the tunnel where we were held captive. That's when I started to cry. When I first saw the sun and came out from the tunnel, I just knelt down and thanked the Lord because I saw the sun again and breathed fresh air. My strength came from the Lord and for my children. Now I am more mature and stronger in many respects. I want to stay here and keep working, even after what they did to me. I want to provide for my family because I do not want my children to experience the hardships that I experienced when I was a child. And I would like to thank you all for your prayers.
Wow, what an incredible story. Erez Soref is the president of One for Israel. He was recently asked, where was God on October the 7th when more than 1,400 Israelis were killed by Hamas and more than 200 were taken hostage? He answered that question when he spoke with TBN Israel's Samuel Samadia in Jerusalem.
And I think the first response is to, first of all, acknowledge the fact that it is something that is difficult to grapple with. You know, we all know people that were hurt in the first circle. You know, their children were killed or kidnapped or very difficult things. And I think the question of where was God in those hours? How can a good and loving God allow such terrible things to happen? It really touches not only on October the 7th, but it's a part of a bigger question. And that's the question of evil in the world in general. I think the question of evil has to take into the equation that God is not a dictator that operates robots. Because if we were robots, then we didn't have a choice. And if you don't have a choice, then you only do good, but then you're just a machine. You don't have your own free will. And by definition, if you have, as a human, a free will, then you have the choice of doing good and doing evil.
Russian President Vladimir Putin says his military has seized the initiative on the battlefield in Ukraine and is well positioned to achieve Moscow's goals. Putin delivered a speech to top Russian military officers and praised troops for repelling Ukrainian attacks during a summer counteroffensive. His defense minister also said the Russian army is the best prepared and the most capable army in the world, and that despite sanctions, Russia is producing more high-tech weapons than NATO countries. Medical professionals have created a high-tech vest they say could help predict cardiac arrests. They say the vest complements the information gathered from an MRI scan.
And what it basically consists of is a vest which a patient can wear for 5 minutes at rest or rest during exercise. And it's embedded with 256 sensors, shall we say, which don't have any gel, so they're quite comfortable and easy to wear. And it gives us a huge amount of electrical information, mapping the heart, not as a single signal, but mapping the heart panoramically. So we literally get three-dimensional maps of the heart, and we can look at the electrics of the heart propagating all across the cardiac chambers. And then when the patient goes in to have their MRI scan, at the end of the scan, we are able to map that data onto the MRI scan.
A famous confectionery here in Canada is about to pull the plug. The Nutty Club brand and its Winnipeg-based parent company, Scott Bathgate, are closing their doors. The company, which began back in 1903, was famous for its pink popcorn, pearl peanuts, syrups, nuts, and food coloring. Scott Bathgate announced that operations will wind down late next month. In a release, company officials say in the current environment, it can no longer sustainably operate the business without significant investments to increase its scale and to compete with national distributors. The closure will affect about 55 employees across 4 provinces. You know, many people struggle in their relationship with food and choose to use the new year as a kickoff to better health. According to Josie Bosgra, a natural nutrition practitioner, it's important to know the reasons why you want to make changes in order for you to really maintain them.
One of my biggest tips is just to really know your why. Why are you wanting to be healthier? Why are you wanting to change your diet? Because if you don't have that to fall back on, or if your why isn't strong enough, so often like just a number on a scale isn't enough, because that's more complex than just changing your diet. There's a lot to that. So having a why that is really motivating, like for some people, it's, you know, I want to be able to get off the floor and have mobility to play with my grandkids or something like that, that really is motivating. It's going to help people feel less like deprived when they're making certain food choices and more motivated and encouraged to do those things.
Make sure you catch the full informative interview with nutrition practitioner Josie Bosgra and BCN's Naveen Day coming up later in our broadcast. Well, it's been a very dry day across much of southwestern Alberta. Not much moisture at all with snow or rain, but that may change fairly soon. Full weather details are on deck. We had sunshine mixed with clouds today and hovered right around the freezing mark. Tonight, expect a slight chance of flurries developing, with the lows staying around 0. Wednesday, it should be mainly sunny with a high expected near 4 degrees. The mercury will climb even further on Thursday. Expect sunshine and a high near 8. Sunny again on Friday with a high near 9 degrees. Now, low pressure system moves in on Saturday, bringing clouds with rain and a high of only 3 degrees. Partly cloudy, the temperature dropping to -1 on Sunday. Christmas Day, Monday, partly sunny with a high near 3 degrees. Now, the average high for this time of year is 0, right at the freezing mark, and the average low is -12. The record high was 16 degrees. That would be nice, set back in 1954. And the record low was -34, set back in 1983. The sun rose at 8:25 and set at 4:32. Let's see how Wednesday is looking across the country now. It should be mainly cloudy with a high of 10 degrees in Victoria, clouds and showers and a high of 11 in Vancouver. Lots of blue sky and sunshine is on tap for Calgary on Wednesday with a high of 7. Sunny and +1 for Edmonton. Expect lots of cloud cover and -5 degrees in Regina, cloudy and -1 for Saskatoon. Cloudy as well for Winnipeg on Wednesday with a high of only -4 degrees. Now in the central part of the country, it should be mainly cloudy in Toronto with a high of 3, overcast and +2 in Ottawa. Montreal will see lots of sunshine and a high of -1. In Atlantic Canada, you should see a high of 0 in Fredericton, rain and 4 degrees in Halifax, overcast and 4 as well in Charlottetown, and in St. John's, expect showers and a high near 9 degrees on Wednesday. Officials at Bombardier say they are disappointed that they were not allowed to bid on the federal government's contract to replace the military's aging patrol planes. They say they will not file a lawsuit, however, over Ottawa's plans to purchase planes from its American rival Boeing for more than $10.4 billion. The government announced last month that it will purchase at least 14 Boeing surveillance planes and a sole source deal, given the proposed Bombardier alternative is not slated to start rolling off the line until the early 2030s. One big bank economist says Tuesday's November inflation report shows we still have an inflation fight on our hands. Inflation held steady nationally at 3.1% last month as we paid more for clothing and recreation. Now, according to Stats Canada, inflation was lower in Alberta, however, at just 2.5%. BMO chief economist Douglas Porter says there were some encouraging elements of the national report, including a slowdown in some core inflation measures which strip out volatile food and gasoline components. So you haven't ordered your Christmas gifts just yet. You might find solace in discovering that some of the biggest retailers in North America are increasing shipping speeds to please shoppers expecting faster deliveries.
So consumers have been used to fast shipping, and the good news is things might even get even faster. Amazon, Walmart, and Target have all been working to increase their shipping speeds this year. For Walmart and Target in particular, it's more about narrowing the gap that currently exists between them and Amazon, which has really set the standard for the industry. But, industry analysts that we've spoken to say for all companies, it's really going to help them compete against some of these low-cost Chinese e-commerce sites that are coming into the U.S. market and really growing in popularity, Shein and Temu being the popular ones.
That reminds me, I really have to start my Christmas shopping. Now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was up 216 points on the day to finish at 20,839. The Dow was up 251 points to 37,557. The S&P 500 was up 27 on the day to 4768, and the Nasdaq was up 98 points to 15,003. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up 97 cents to 73.44 US per barrel. Natural gas was down a cent to 2.49 US. Gold was up $13.16 on the day to $2,040.35 US an ounce, and silver was up 25 cents to $24.05 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $9.23 per bushel, barley's at $6.85, canola's at $14.63, and corn is at $8.03 per bushel. Live cattle were down 38 cents to $168.45. Feeder cattle January contract is down $1.28 to $221.90. And lean hogs February contract is down $1.03 to $70.55. The Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to $74.98 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, Lethbridge City Council approved $250,000 in emergency funding for the financially struggling Lethbridge and District Exhibition and its Agri-Food Hub and Trade Centre. This follows the removal of Mike Workington as the ex-CEO and a new interim board being put in place. City officials say it will also set aside up to $950,000 in contingency for verified emergent needs. You know, Christmas time is a time of year when many put on weight and add a little bit of winter insulation. All of the wonderful cooking and so many wonderful treats. Well, coming up, we're going to chat with a nutrition consultant who has some tips on how you can enjoy the holiday treats without going overboard. Listen, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. And if you missed any of our local stories, visit our website, bridgecitynews.ca.
Here's today's Bridge City News Community Calendar. Lethbridge's Christmas Hope campaign is in full swing, and there's plenty of opportunities to spread the holiday spirit by giving to those who are less fortunate. The annual Toy Mountain at Center Village Mall goes until December 22nd. Drop off new unwrapped toys like stuffed animals, toy trucks, baby dolls, and anything fun that brings a smile to a child's face. The Lethbridge Senior Citizens Organization is hosting their 39th annual free Christmas dinner from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Christmas Day. Come enjoy delicious food and join and share in the holiday spirit. Simply call 403-320-2222 to add your name to the guest list. Henderson Lake Park Run invites all to throw in a pair of runners and participate in a free weekly, computer-timed and recorded 5-kilometer walk, jog, or run. The park run is one of 2,100 park runs held around the world. Dogs on leashes and kids in strollers are welcome too. The park run begins at the Kinsman Picnic Shelter at 9 a.m. every Saturday. To register, visit parkrun.ca. Celebrate Recovery is a Christ-centered recovery program for any hurt, hang-up, and habit. This group meets Friday nights at Park Meadows Baptist Church. The evening begins at 7 p.m. with a large group session, followed by small groups at 8 with coffee and dessert at 9. For more information, visit celebraterecovery.ca or call Park Meadows Church office at 403-327-4422. And that's today's Bridge City News Community Calendar.
We all know that food is always part of our Christmas and New Year's traditions. Both food and the holidays bring people together. As we know, there are foods that can help and heal, and there are ones that do the opposite. To discuss this more about food and the changes we need to make, we have Josie Bosgra. She's a natural nutrition clinical practitioner. Josie, welcome back to Bridge City News. So great to have you back.
Thanks for having me again.
Now, many people struggle with their relationship with food, and if your food is more often than not coming through a drive-through window, that could be considered an abusive relationship or an unhealthy relationship. How can individuals work towards changing their mindsets and developing a healthier approach to eating?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's important to start there because mindset is so key with any sort of dietary change. If people don't work on their mindset and then kind of just focus on the external changes they need, it's not going to last. It won't be sustainable. So I think one of the reasons people don't sustain changes in their diet, so we see, January, everyone's changing, and then by March, they're not, is because they haven't addressed their mindset. So I guess one of my biggest tips is just to really know your why. Why are you wanting to be healthier? Why are you wanting to change your diet? Because if you don't have that to fall back on, or if your why isn't strong enough, so often like just a number on a scale isn't enough because that's more complex than just changing your diet. There's a lot to that. So having a why that is really motivating, like for some people, it's, I want to be able to get off the floor and have mobility to play with my grandkids or something like that, that really is motivating. It's going to help people feel less like deprived when they're making certain food choices and more motivated and encouraged to do those things. And so I guess my point is if you don't have that strong why, when things get tight, when things get busy, when things get stressful, you won't sustain it because you don't want it bad enough. And then the other piece to that in terms of actually cutting out certain foods, because we all know there's foods that make us feel kind of crummy and we still eat them. I think it's this mindset. You have to have a mindset of wanting to heal more than having pleasure in this comfort of the foods that you know, because the reality is there's so many foods out there that you can try. And so when people shift that mindset of like, I want to be creative and try new things versus I just have to cut this out, you're going to see kind of unsustainable fruit with the cutting out mentality and more perseverance and endurance with the other mentality. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about emotional eating for a bit here, because I've heard about people who stress eat, or they eat because they're depressed, or they're lonely, or they're bored. So are there specific strategies or practices that you would recommend to help individuals overcome like these emotional eating habits?
Yeah, it's going to be unique to each person, but I would say a big one that I see often is eating breakfast. A lot of people skip breakfast. I would say half the people that I see skip breakfast are doing it intentionally because there's a lot of hype about intermittent fasting these days. And while I do think there's a time and a place that could be beneficial, lots of times it's not. And then a lot of people skip breakfast because they simply don't make time to actually make food for themselves or wake up early enough to get that done. So I see many people, especially women, especially of childbearing ages, where their hormones are fluctuating every single day of the month, skipping breakfast. And then they have these episodic emotional eating spouts, or bouts, sorry. And starting by just eating breakfast can go a really long way, because you're
Wow.
setting your nervous system up for success. If your nervous system doesn't have fuel, then you're going to be running on fumes, and then later in the day you'll be tired and your nervous system is dysregulated. So one of the ways we try to regulate that is by eating, because it releases certain happy hormones and whatnot, right? So there's that. And then I'll also say there's definitely more than nutritional elements to emotional eating. So making sure that you're caring for yourself holistically. So having psychological help in place. And then again, I talked about the nervous system, having other practices in your life that help to bring your nervous system from fight or flight to rest and digest. Because we all know that, especially this time of year, we're all like, go, go, go. Our bodies are not easily resting and sitting back and breathing deep.
So don't skip breakfast. It sounds like such a simple yet effective solution. Now, with the Christmas and New Year celebrations approaching, many tend to indulge in festive foods. How can people enjoy the holiday meals and all the treats and the bakings and the sweets without compromising their health?
My favorite tip, not only for Christmas, but any sort of celebration or holiday in general, is just don't cut out or deprive yourself of the treats you want to enjoy, but find alternative recipes that use better ingredients. One of the wonders of the internet is that you can pretty much find any alternative recipe for any kind of nostalgic treat that you would like to enjoy. We just made a gingerbread house the other day, and it tasted just like gingerbread house, but didn't have gluten or dyes, artificial dyes, or nuts, because my son's allergic to nuts. And so you can find ways to enjoy those things that don't have the ingredients that are going to wreak havoc on your body. I think we see a lot of people try to just have the willpower to just not eat the things. Instead, you could just make a platter of cookies that are made with almond flour and coconut sugar, and bring that to your party and enjoy it. And probably no one's going to know that it's different, because these ingredients actually taste really, really good. Turns out Whole Foods tastes really yummy.
They do, yes. Now, hydration, let's talk about that for a while, because this is often overlooked, not just as Christmas, like I think this often overlooked year round. Talk about why is it essential for our overall health, and what are the signs that someone may not be drinking enough water?
Yeah, I mean, hydration is essential, just because our body is made up of so much water. So if we're not drinking that water, you're essentially just depriving your body of what it's made up of, which things start to break down. And so I think we obviously know that thirst is a sign of dehydration, but it goes beyond that. Like fatigue is, I mean, how many of us struggle with fatigue? I think so many people feel tired all the time. And I'm not saying hydration or dehydration is the only reason for it, but it is a really big one. If you're not getting enough water, things in your body slow down. There's cellular processes that can't fully be carried out, without being hydrated. So fatigue is one, even like weight gain, things like that, because if you're not drinking enough water, your detoxification system in your body isn't going to be able to like flush toxins out. So then you hang on to things. You also hang on to water when you're not drinking enough, because it's like a survival mechanism for your body. Another part of this conversation is also electrolyte balance. And so many people struggle to maintain electrolyte balance. And we think of this, I guess, with athletes, or if someone's running a marathon, it's like, okay, drink Powerade, which I don't recommend, by the way. Good source for electrolytes, but has terrible other ingredients in there. But when we're stressed, which again, I think a lot of us are, and when our diets are depleted of certain minerals and electrolytes, then we will be depleted in electrolytes. And so I have a lot of clients that drink like the recommended amount of water and still feel thirsty, or still, when I look at their blood, they look dehydrated. And so we usually incorporate some electrolyte supplements, or something like coconut water, which is a natural source of electrolytes, and that can change. The other thing is, I think we've been brainwashed a little bit to think that salt is bad, and so a lot of us avoid salt when really that's what our body needs. So another way you can do that hydration is put some sea salt in your mouth, on your tongue, before drinking your water, and then it'll actually be absorbed better by your cells themselves.
Ah, I just learned something new there.
There you go. Yeah.
And talking about dehydration, and this is going to be a good segue into my next question anyways. You talked about energy drinks, which aren't very healthy, and a lot of people who do maybe like overindulge in alcohol when they have a hangover the next day. Usually they'll open up like an energy drink such as a Gatorade. And you're saying that's unhealthy, but what about electrolyte rich beverages such as like Pedialyte and those ones that are particularly like aimed at hydration and restoration of electrolytes? What are your thoughts on those?
I can't speak specifically to that product because I don't have it in front of me. I'd have to look at the ingredients, but I think that is really what I would say to someone is read the ingredients. You obviously want them to have the electrolytes in there, but what else is in there? So are there dyes? Are there extra sugars that are unnecessary? Are there different additives and syrups and things that really it's electrolytes are beneficial, but those things aren't. So in my opinion, it kind of just cancels out. And so I think it's important to read ingredients and to reach for the most simple ingredients. So again, I talked about coconut water. That is great because it's a great source of electrolytes and there's no funky additives. It's literally just from a coconut. You can find some pretty clean like electrolyte supplements out there these days too. Again, just read the ingredients. That's all I would say.
I remember my mom always telling me to drink lots of coconut water because of the electrolytes, and it was high in potassium, which is also beneficial for you. And now, while we're still on the subject of hydration, and we're in the Christmas season, let's talk about alcohol consumption, which many people indulge in during the holiday season. Even those who don't normally drink, they may actually like indulge around this time of year. How does consuming alcohol affect hydration levels, and are there any specific signs that it's time to cool it with the eggnog and rum?
I think we all know, if we're honest, the amount of clients that come in that already know that they're drinking too much, or they might not even have symptoms physically, but they just know. Like, listen to that, first of all. Definitely can contribute to dehydration. Even coffee, there's a big stress on alcohol in the liver, but even excess caffeine too can have a similar effect on your hydration levels. And so really with alcohol, I think it's like anything in excess. Too much of anything is going to be not good for your body. And so again, with alcohol, similar to what I talked about with the treats, is like, you don't want to just cut it out if that's going to be something that then you're going to like binge drink later. But sometimes there's a time and a place for kind of fasting from something, and alcohol would be one of those ones that I commonly do suggest because of the amount of liver stress that I see with clients. Mind you, again, excess caffeine can put stress on your liver, excess carbs, excess sugar. And so we got to be careful not to just blame alcohol. But as you said, it is one at this time of year that we commonly overindulge in. So
now, winter can be challenging for maintaining a healthy lifestyle because we tend to be more hermits and we don't want to go out as much. How does the winter season impact our health, and what nutritional considerations should we keep in mind?
There's so many ways the winter impacts our health. I'll say a few. I mean, the obvious is the sunlight and lack thereof. And so we all know that supplementing vitamin D can be helpful, and especially in Canada. Another thing it's not a nutritional consideration, but with health is something I've been trying is red light therapy, just to help with circadian rhythms, to help with like avoiding seasonal depression, things like that, where you're getting that light. It has a lot of other benefits too for your muscles and inflammation and things. So that's another one. In terms of nutrition, one thing I want to talk about is the idea of sugar poisoning and how we think that there's this season of cold and flu. And yes, I'm not saying cold and flu season isn't real. It's true. We're getting less vitamin D, blah, blah, blah. But we're also eating a lot more sugar. So cold and flu season kind of falls between Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, right? Where this is where everyone's getting sick. And we look at what we're eating a lot more sweets, and we're eating a lot less nutrient dense foods. And so there's something to be said for the effects on our body of all these treats. And maybe sometimes when we're sick, it's actually because we've been eating too much sugar. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Again, what I said before is you don't need to cut out treats completely, but if you can make treats that are sweetened with honey or sweetened with maple syrup or coconut sugar, it's not that it's not sugar like in the body, but it's going to be a healthier source of it that has kind of less detrimental effects on the body. And then the other one I'll say that is kind of interesting, a lot of people don't think about it, is pork can be hard on the immune system for a lot of people, particularly if you have any autoimmunity issues, but also I see in people's blood, even people without diagnosed autoimmunity who eat a lot of pork have overactive kind of immune response. So their immune system is working overtime to deal with eating too much pork because it can have an inflammatory effect on the body. And I think that's why, I don't know about you, but I have even family members and friends who, before I learned about this, like in nutrition school, growing up, I knew people who didn't eat pork because it gave them headaches or it made them feel yucky. And now I understand why, because I've seen it in the blood. But that would be another one. Again, can't say no to bacon on Christmas morning, but try not to eat pork every single week. Like I definitely try and I don't eat it more than once a month, and really I probably only eat it a couple of times a year. Um, that's my personal conviction there, but definitely limiting pork and reducing the amount can help us stay healthier throughout the winter to reduce that immune response.
So it's not just the season you can blame on here if you're getting sick. Now, are there specific foods or supplements that can help support our immune systems during the winter months?
Yeah, I mean, we touched on vitamin D. Vitamin C is good. With vitamin C, I suggest kind of a food-based source of it. So like camu camu or goji berries, things like that. Like healthier food sources of vitamin C. It's going to be more absorbable by the body. Vitamin C is great. It's not just good for the immune system, but that is one really great benefit. And then I think we already touched on it, less sugar, more vegetables. Again, instead of just focusing on like cutting out sweets, try to think about eating more vegetables. So how can I incorporate more vegetables into my day, especially over the winter, to make sure I'm getting vitamins and minerals? And I know, again, the internet has so much information out there these days, it can be a bit disorienting for people. I've seen a lot online these days saying vegetables are bad for you. It kind of makes me chuckle because I don't agree, and I don't see how that really makes sense because they have all of our vitamins and minerals that we need. So eat more vegetables for sure.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Josie, and thanks for sharing your insights with us today. Been a pleasure having you on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
You know, Christmas is normally such a wonderful time of year, although we can easily get stressed out and distracted and lose sight of the fact that Jesus is the reason for the season. Joining us today to chit-chat a bit about Christmas is Lethbridge Pastor Kelly Stickle, lead pastor for Parallel Church. Welcome back to BCN, Pastor Kelly.
Yeah, thanks, Hal. It's great to be with you.
You bet. Now, first of all, can you tell us about what's happening at Parallel Church for Christmas this season?
Wow, yeah, we have a lot going on. Of course, we host the Shop of Wonders, which is always a big outreach that we do into the community, and this year's been record-setting in that regard. We've also had we have a children's takeover service coming up this Sunday, December 17th, where it's exciting to see our kids do a big. They're doing a Polar Express presentation. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then on Christmas Eve, we have three services, our 9:30, 11:15, and 1 p.m. service. We're going to do Christmas Eve in the morning because, of course, Christmas Eve this year is Sunday. So we decided we're gonna do the Sunday morning and add the service in the afternoon and allow people to be with their families on Christmas Eve.
You know, Pastor Kelly, a lot of people who don't normally attend church do so on Christmas, take in a Christmas Eve service, especially the candlelit services. So much fun. The kids enjoy with the candles as well. Do you find that more people come out during the holiday season?
Definitely. There's yeah, Christmas and Easter are two of the, primary times a year where we see a lot of family members, unchurched, uh, come out, and then a lot of families, might not attend church regularly, but during Christmas, that it's just they've created a family tradition where they'll go to a service as part of their family get-togethers, and that. So yeah, we do see a lot of people that their first. I talk with people all the time that their first Sunday attending was either a Christmas Eve service or an Easter service, and that they made a connection with Jesus at that particular service. So a lot of unchurched people come out this time of year.
Every year we say that this Christmas is going to be totally different, but too often it ends up being the same crazy rush. You got a lot of fathers and husbands, and I won't name any people in my family who are scrambling on Christmas Eve looking for gifts sometimes.
Yeah, and I don't know anybody either.
No, right? So any tips on actually how we can slow things down and appreciate Christmas for what it really is?
Yeah, I think that's always a pressure. I feel that same pressure. There's a lot, of course, a lot of busyness that comes with this season, just in our work life and ministry life, and then family and all the extra elements that go along with it. That every single year you feel that pressure. Oh, this is crazy. This is getting out of hand. But I think for me, one of the things as I grow older, I've paid more attention to the moments and taking in the moments, especially with family, and appreciating the moments and the time that we get to spend in the traditions, and creating memories and celebrating those memories as much as possible, and focus on that, and kind of being in the moment instead of always focusing on, I got to get this done, I got this list to do, we have to do that, and just paying attention to those closest to us and making memories with them.
Amen to that. Another issue for a lot of Canadians sometimes is overspending during the holidays, stretching that credit card limit to the max. We can feel pressure to buy gifts for everyone. Any thoughts on how to really set reasonable limits without feeling guilty?
I think it's always wise. I know for a lot of people it's probably a little bit late now, but I think one thing that my wife and I began doing years ago was we actually put into our budgets, the birthday gifts, and we know, within our family, but also we put into our budgets the Christmas gift, and saying this is the set amount that we're going to spend, and there's a freedom in being able to do that and put it into the budget where you're not feeling that stress, or you're not feeling you know, all of the retail outlets know this time of year that people are in that mood of purchasing and buying gifts, and so they kind of tempt you with, well, just go a little bit bigger. But when you have a set limit, a set budget, and okay, I've got freedom to be able to spend within that budget, but I'm also not going to be tempted to overspend. And then of course just make it a rule. I think the basic rules that we're just not going to go in debt. Um, for spending, like just don't do it, because and inevitably you push that limit and going, oh, we'll just delay it, but that adds enormous amount of pressure, especially coming into the new year.
So, Pastor Kelly, this is the time of year we hear and we see a lot of commercials promoting Santa Claus and all of Santa's reindeer and Frosty the Snowman. How can we really bring it back to the fact that we're celebrating Jesus' birthday?
Yeah, I think it's always it's an interesting dilemma that is constantly the commercialization of Christmas, and then also you see the attempts to um, take, we can't say Merry Christmas anymore. One place was like, it's Happy Winter. It wasn't even Happy Holidays. Like I was like, or holidays, and I was like, that's just is bizarre how society's trying to do whatever they can to remove it. But I think it's always coming back to just historically saying, what are we celebrating? Why are we celebrating it? Even I've taught in our church on who Santa Claus, where that whole mystical being, like where it all came from, and really Saint Nicholas and all of it was all about celebrating Jesus himself. So all of that points back to Jesus, and to the reason for the season, and just you know constantly reminding ourselves, but also especially our children, in taking time during the Christmas season to read the Christmas story, to remind them of what the season's about, to make it a special celebration for Jesus, and just continuing to remind our children and each other what Christmas is all about, where it came from, and why we're celebrating it.
Honoring God, amen. We have this Christmas ornament in our house we hang on the tree each and every year. It's an ornament of Santa Claus taking off his hat and kneeling at the cradle of Jesus.
I love that.
So that's kind of like meshing the two together. You know, Christmas, Pastor Kelly, is an awesome time of year for so many of us. Get together with family and friends, like you said, take in a wonderful Christmas Eve service. But it's not for everyone. Now, from your experience as a pastor, what are the challenges that people typically face during the holiday season?
I think that there's probably two of the biggest challenges are families or people that have lost a family member or a loved one in the last year. And it comes, especially that first Christmas, after having lost a loved one within the year becomes extra hard because of the memories that are created, and the empty seat at the table becomes very emotional, very painful, and it pulls out a lot of the grief. So this season, I think just being sensitive to those, and being, if you're in that situation, being aware that, yeah, Christmas is going to pull on that, and it's not wrong to grieve. It's not wrong to feel sad. That's just, it's part of the grieving process. So I think there's enormous loss that people feel. I think the other one is people feel alone if they aren't surrounded through circumstances, whether it be geography or whether it be divorces or separations, or that they feel extra alone in a year, and it can become very difficult for those people as well. It's just they feel extra alone in a season like when they see other families celebrating together and gathering together, and they feel that much more alone. So I think just being aware of that, and being um, I think cognizant of people in our community are feeling that, and being sensitive to that. And if you are one of those people, the reason for the season is that we are never alone because Jesus came, Emmanuel, God with us. That's part of it. And that because of Jesus, we are eternal beings, and that we have the opportunity to see our loved ones again, especially as believers. We'll see our loved ones again, and so we can pull on again that purpose of Jesus coming and what we're celebrating at Christmas.
So what can we really do to help those who are feeling lonely and depressed during the Christmas season?
I'd encourage people. I mean, open your homes to people. If you know someone's going to be alone, like, welcome them in as part of your family. Be aware of them. Be sensitive to them. I think even as you're out in the community shopping, and we inevitably run into the grumpy shopper, or somebody that's in traffic that is not as polite as they should be. All these things, just, I think, extra grace this season, realizing that this is not the the best time of year for some people. It's some of the hardest time of year, and just being extra patient, and being aware of the people around us and what they may be going through.
You know, when I was a kid, it was kind of the norm to bundle up nice and warm with the family, go out and sing Christmas carols, walk around the neighborhood. You can enjoy a lot of the beautiful Christmas lights, and maybe even drop off some Christmas baking to your neighbors. Do people still do that, or is that maybe gone by the wayside nowadays?
It's definitely not as prevalent as it used to be. I grew up in a small town, and so where a lot of us knew one another, and that was a lot more prevalent than what I see now. I think just society as a whole, we're more isolated than ever before, and people are more reluctant to go out, and more less trusting to be able to do that kind of thing. But I still have carolers come, by our house, and I celebrate that. I love that. That's part of being community, and I know that people still share goodies and have those celebrations together, and I love it. And I do see it, but it's not as common as it used to be. That's for sure.
In our house, when we're decorating the Christmas tree, we put on Feliz Navidad by either Jose Feliciano or Boney M, Elvis's Blue Christmas, but then some of the traditional Christmas carols, Oh Holy Night, Silent Night, and sometimes we sing it in German, Stille Nacht, Heilige Nacht. What were some of the traditions in your family here?
Yeah, well, I come from a German family, so yeah, Stille Nacht was definitely, that was part of it. I grew up with Boney M was it was my dad's favorite Christmas album, so yeah, we listened to that one on repeat, and yeah, so lots of yeah. And my grandmother, the Christmas baking was out of this world, and some of the kuchen and all the different things that we would have during Christmas is a very special memory.
Now, any final thoughts on how to keep Jesus Christ in Christmas to help reach out to other people in our community?
Yeah, I would, part of, I would make sure that in your gatherings, your family gatherings, to make Jesus at the center. And there's creative things that we've done with our family. We read the Christmas story, of course, in multiple different ways and approaches, and keep that as part of the celebration before gift openings, or just that. The other things that we've done, though, is we've my wife's baked a birthday cake, and when our kids were young, we'd sing "Happy Birthday" to Jesus and make it kind of a birthday party celebration for Jesus, and remembering that He's the season. Get creative with it, but make sure that 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 everyone in the family knows, hey, this is why we're gathering and this is what we're celebrating. And then taking it to the community is, while we're generous with one another and our families and those that we love most, is encourage people to be generous with those in need, that you see. And there's needs all around us. If we have eyes to see, there's needs everywhere. And in this season, if we can be generous, with those in our community, or those that we know in our workplace, or those in our neighborhood, and we know that, hey, things are tighter for them this year, they lost a loved one, hey, maybe let's go to them and bring the baking to them, and just saying, hey, we're thinking of you, and just be generous as we can to our neighbors as well.
And I guess at the same time, if people can't be generous financially, because a lot of Canadians are financially strapped right now at this time of year, maybe we can give of our time. Read to a senior in a senior's home, maybe help out at the food bank, or even volunteer at the soup kitchen.
Absolutely. Yeah, any of those things is, again, a reminder of, hey, we're celebrating that God so loved the world that He gave. And so this is an opportunity to go, man, God gave for me. What can I do to give for others? And if it's not financially, then what can I? There's lots of things I can give. Time and energy and a smile, like a hug, whatever it might be. There's lots of things that I can give, but just remember that, hey, we're giving because He gave to us.
How important is it then, Pastor Kelly, to really serve others in our community, especially during the Christmas season, showing Christ's love?
It's vital. Paul says this in Galatians 5, that the only faith that counts is the one that expresses itself through love. And a lot of what we as believers believe is, it's not just a personal relationship, but that our mandate is to, God loved us, we can love others. Jesus said, a new command I give you, love one another. So when we're celebrating Jesus coming to earth, God with us, I think we have not just a responsibility, but an obligation to therefore give and be generous to those around us, and meet needs, and love on our community, love our neighbors, and not just keep the faith to ourselves, but to share it with others.
And invite people over for eggnog and fruitcake. Although you know what, a lot of my friends don't even like fruitcake and eggnog anymore. So.
I don't even like eggnog, so I don't like either one of those. But I'll share that generously.
I'm an oddity in that way. I guess, like Mom used to say, "Hey, the more for me, son." Right?
That's right, exactly.
Kelly Stickles, the lead pastor of Parallel Church in Lethbridge. Thanks so much for your time today, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you, Hal.
Thanks so much. On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless. Thanks so much for watching.